Hey, Legal Rebels, this is Tom Martin. I'm the founder of LawDroid, and this is my podcast, LawDroid Manifesto, where I interview legal innovators about how they do what they do.
In this episode, I interview Troy Doucet, the founder of AI.Law, a practical tool that can help litigators be faster, more efficient, and cost effective, and ultimately increase access to justice. Hey there, welcome to the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. My name is Tom Martin. I'll be your host today, and I'm very excited today to have Troy Doucet of AI.Law on to talk about his startup and what he's up to. So with that, Troy, if you could just introduce yourself, your company, and give us a bit of an elevator pitch about what your company does.
Sure, absolutely. Tom, thanks for having me on too. I hope we get back in, we get at some point how we met. That would be a good backstory here as well. But my name's Troy Doucet. I'm a lawyer in Columbus, Ohio. I have a law firm, and AI.Law helps lawyers draft litigation documents. So the idea is that we make the process a lot faster for lawyers who are litigating cases to get through at least the main drafting stages with the help of AI.
That's fantastic. And just to share, how we did meet, it was at the Collision Conference in Toronto about this same time last year. And that was a lot of fun because, I don't know, for me, I had never been to a conference that was that gargantuan. It was just, as far as the eye can see, there was additional booths and startups and attendees, and it was crazy.
Well, you knew what you were doing. I mean, we were right next to each other, but you clearly have, you had years of experience putting your product together and showcasing it. I was brand new. AI had just sort of come out, and we were doing what we were doing. I don't know if you know what happened with us though, is that I was actually interested in AI. I wasn't sure what we were going to do, so I started looking around at different conferences, and I found Collision up in Toronto, and I looked at the prices. And then I looked at the prices to have a kiosk as a startup, and that was cheaper. So I decided, well, might as well just take AI.Law up there and show it off and see what happens. But it was nice to meet there, and the rest is, history, I guess.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. They also had, pitches where it kind of forced you to think, okay, what exactly am I trying to build here? And no, I think, and also they did have a AI track. I understand that the track for AI this year was even more populated as one would expect.
It's the hot thing. I mean, any conference I've been to this year, everybody has AI somewhere on the backdrop of what they're doing. So it's definitely, everybody wants it, I guess.
Well, let me ask you the natural question. How did you come up with this? Why AI? Why apply it to the law? I mean, you are a lawyer, but how did these two things come together?
Yeah, a lot of my practice is consumer facing. So we do a lot of flat monthly fees. We don't do that much contingency, but efficiency is very important. And in 2020, I started learning a little bit more about AI, and I realized that there might be an opportunity to issue spot, to have our reception or intake folks take notes into a system that get processed through AI, give us potential causes of action through issue spotting to know whether or not it's something that then a lawyer should take a look at or not. So I hired a data scientist at that point in time. This technology wasn't that good built in, so we tried to create some of it to do issue spotting. But even with hundreds of thousands of cases, it just didn't work. So we put it on pause. But I did get the domain name at that point in time in 2020 before everything picked up. And then when GPT came out and we started doing a little bit more of it, testing the waters, and that did a pretty nice job at the very beginning of issue spotting. Now it does a great job of it. We sort of built up, did some more integrations, tested things out software wise, went to Collision, realized that there was something that we could continue developing. So I brought on a CTO and other folks, and we've sort of built it out, truly built it out since probably last October, with figuring things out maybe early April of this year. So at least let all the pieces falling into place, I should say, in early April. But we started selling in October, November in earnest.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you started working on it as far back as 2020.
Yeah, beginnings of it. Yeah, yeah, beginnings of it.
Do you think that did COVID have anything to do with it? Because when I've talked to others, they've mentioned that, it really changed people's mindset and perception of the use of technology. Like there was so much of a kind of like a wave of interest in using, not, I wouldn't say AI in particular at the time, but just like going online and becoming virtual for those that hadn't yet. Did that spark any interest in it for you too?
Yeah, I think a little bit. When I say consumer work too, with what my law firm does, so it's a lot of foreclosure defense. So when the moratorium came out through COVID, there were zero foreclosures nationwide. I had a lot of time on my hands to do some other things. So we did a lot of focusing on efficiencies within the firm, our processes, things to make life a little bit easier. And then AI comes out, and I think that was definitely a natural extension of it. It almost like primed us, from my perspective at least, to be really receptive to the idea that like we're already looking for efficiencies.
And then began selling in earnest against the market in October last year.
Yeah, about then. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you were at the startup alley, right?
Yes, for ABA. Yeah, ABA Tech Week Startup Alley. Exactly. Yeah.
And how did that go for you? Like,
Well, we didn't win, if that's what you.
no, 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 I don't mean that. Like, was it your first time going to the ABA Tech Show?
Yeah, yes, it was. Yeah, yeah. This is all
Yeah.
very new to me, and it's really interesting to sort of be immersed in this community is what it is. And I definitely feel like I'm the new kid on the block sometimes when it comes to this, but I love it. I enjoy it. It's the way my brain thinks, I think, with AI and the linear way and the way that everything gets broken down, pulled apart, put back together. I enjoy it. And it's been neat to meet people. You were really the first person I met in this space, as we talked about, and then through Tech Week, and I went to ALM Legal Week in New York, which was more corporate, um, uh, and some other conferences. And it's been fascinating to see different types of lawyers doing different things, and also interested in different types of product pieces of a product, if you will, and what's important or not. And it's just like a lot of things in life where there's a little bit of product, there's a little bit of politics, there's a little bit of um, confidence game that's played also within the whole system. So it's been very educational for me and to move forward. I like it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm really happy to have you as part of the community because I think that your approach to it is, it's very practical because, you come at it from the point of view of being a practicing lawyer. And that, especially right now with the burgeoning numbers of AI legal tech startups, that's become a rare thing. And so with that, I'd like, for the sake of the audience, to just, if you could describe a little bit about what the product is,
Yeah.
how it works, because I think they'll find, as I did, that it's just a very pragmatic, practical thing that a litigator could kind of just plug into their practice and make a lot of use of. So if you could give us an overview of what it
Yeah.
is and what it does.
Yeah, it's been and we definitely started with an eye towards what do we want to do to make life easier for myself. Okay, what do I not enjoy doing as a litigator? Like drafting discovery objections. You got 30 discovery requests, you got to do objections for it. Not really exciting. So what we sat down to do was to practically solve that first, second, and and to where AI can handle it all. So a lot of the development and what we've done on a product basis is less about research and competing with Lexis or Westlaw or the companies that dive into case law, but more about making the litigation process itself faster and more efficient. So we do complaint drafting from scratch. You can enter a fact pattern that's a couple paragraphs to hundreds of pages, and we'll digest it. We'll pull out necessary facts. You tell us what claims you want. We'll go get the elements of each individual claim out of the jurisdiction. We'll provide facts that support each one, and then put it all into a complaint that's complete. So it'd be a 20, 30 page, 40 page complaint that has all the sections that you're expecting. We base it on the federal court system because it's the way most jurisdictions follow, but it's effectively ready to file when it comes out of the system. And we can do the whole thing in a few minutes. So 3 or 4 page complaints, maybe 50 seconds, 60 seconds, do all that. And then for longer ones, it's obviously a little bit longer. But you don't need citations, so we don't have a problem with hallucinations. It's all about getting all this data correlated and make sense from a legal standpoint in a document that we all need in order to do something, which is file the lawsuit. So we have the complaint drafting, answer drafting, as I said, discovery responses. We have a module to pull that information out of medical files now. You can pull every cost, everything you could possibly want. And even if it's hundreds of pages, we're finding it's the accuracy. When I've tested it 100% on what we're pulling out of it. Took a lot of text side on the AI and stack on top of our AI in order to make that happen. But the idea is that it's about speed. We have some analytical tools also, and you can draft a contract and you can chat. But the main meat and potatoes of what we do is the drafting piece of it. And to your earlier point too, I think what's a little bit unique with the way we've done this is that I am a practicing lawyer. I've litigated a lot of cases. My firm has litigated 2,200 cases plus, since I opened it. It's a skill set that I have, and bringing that into AI law makes it practical and allows us to sort of focus on best practices and things that I've experienced and what I've learned to make it good. It's just not a software product that does something that's AI based. It's something that has to be relevant and practical for what we do in order for us to use it. And my firm does use it. So that's good. Yeah. Similar to your situation. I know when you did this with your practice, so with your own product, right?
Yeah, we eat our own dog food.
There you go.
And actually, like I have seen some pictures of, I think it's your law partner or an associate at your firm where, you're talking about the product or showing that the person's using it, and like it looks like day to day there that you're making use of it at your office.
Yeah, we had a couple of lawyers. Yeah, we had a couple. My managing lawyer and a senior litigation lawyer who've been around the block for a few years. Yeah, we had that. They're using it, and they love it. I mean, that's they work for me, but they actually do use it as well. So, and it's fascinating to see in an environment like that how different people are using it. People that have a lot of experience, people that are brand new to experience, different age groups, and what they're pulling out of it, what they're testing and trying, and I think that really represents what we're seeing on a broader scale. Where when I talk to different lawyers, I'll show them, some lawyers I'll show the chat functionality, which is for all intents and purposes a fancy wrapper on GPT-4. But we have it there because people need a chat functionality that's built in. But we also have like prompts we have pre-prompted where you can ask it for certain things, and we've built out the back end on it. But they think that is the coolest thing since sliced bread. I'm like, well, wait a second, let me show you what we do, and then you have other lawyers where they're very familiar with AI, and they see one aspect, they want to get right to the most complex stuff that we do. So it's interesting from a firm standpoint, but also from a societal standpoint where where lawyers are really.
Well, one thing I want to share with you is that when we were at the ABA Tech Show, okay, and everybody's doing their pitches, you started pitching the product and you were showing it on the screen. And I think the example that you were showing, that you were sharing with us was about creating discovery responses. And somehow, you had fed into the system like a factual background about, your client and I think what would be taken down from notes that you'd put into the system and all that. and then you fed in the discovery that requests and asked it to generate responses. Now, when you did that, I prior to you going up there, I started talking to some of the people at my table, right? Introductions, what do you do? And the couple other guys I was talking to, they're PI lawyers in Florida. So, the kind of lawyers that are litigators that have every incentive to be efficient and all that good stuff. When you showed that, their jaws dropped on the floor. They're like, this is amazing. Like this is so cool, because it's not just cool, but you could plug it in directly to do your job more quickly and efficiently, which, especially for contingency lawyers, makes it a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more? Like you
Yeah.
gave an overview of
Yeah.
generally what it does, but like that example in particular, to break it down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that quite a bit. I mean, it's nice. I appreciate that, the recognition of that also, like that it saves a lot of time, and that's what the goal is. So if that was the message we got across, like that's positive. But for the discovery responses in particular, it's definitely different than, I don't know of anybody else out there doing this, where you're able to upload a complete discovery request document from opposing counsel. It can be separate, your request for admission separate than your PODs, or it can be a combined document, doesn't matter. And you can have 50 different requests that are all in the document. And now you've got to, reformat it and add your general objections. Then after each individual request, you've got to do your objections to preserve those. Then you have to do your individual, and then the responses that are relevant to the client's information. We do all that completely through AI. So you literally upload the entire document. You upload whatever you want from a client's response standpoint. We actually recommend it be a narrative, be overall bullet points. It's not like you have to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and answer every one, because a lot of times they're repetitive, right? If you're answering one interrogatory, it goes to 4 different requests for admissions, maybe a production of document. So you only need to provide that once in one regularly all written document, by plain vanilla English language. You upload that, you upload your requests, and then our system will do everything. So it'll pull out each individual request. It'll create general objections to the whole document in the beginning. It'll format the whole thing for you, including bringing over the parties, adding in your certificate of service. It'll add every single discovery request back into the response, and then you will get a robust objection that's multi-paragraph, like brutal AM100 kind of, like I wouldn't want to get it kind of thing. And I tell people they're going to be more likely to want to remove objections if they're not used to doing that than they are to like think of one extra, because it's brutal. And then you get the substantive response, and the response is directly correlated to the question, pulled from the facts that are relevant for that particular response. So, with one identify lay witnesses, you might have a paragraph or a response that's 3, 4 paragraphs long, and for every single one. So if it's 50 requests long, that would take hours and hours and hours and hours of time. And like I said, we can do something that long, probably about 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Once it's done, and you don't have to check boxes. So it's not like you copy paste, you check box, I want this, objection, that objection. It does all of it for you with AI. And then after it's done, before it gets outputted in a Word document, we have a AI editor that you can use directly within our system. So you can type into any section, change anything you want, or tell AI to rework any particular one of the responses any way you want it. And at the end, you just click a button, you download it as a Word document, and you serve it. Really fast, easy. Yeah. It's crazy. This is why I love AI. I mean, you just, and I don't know if you have this on the agenda to talk about it or not, but I tend to think that AI right now, at least the bigger ones, our underlying, we're public about it, our underlying AI system is GPT-4. We do use some other functionalities and other aspects of LLMs, but our main underlying piece is GPT-4, and it is good. we talk about like generalization. You go in with a bad prompt, you're going to get a bad answer, right? You go with a general prompt to GPT, you're going to get a general response. But if you can hone it in and if you can prompt it, it is really, really good. I mean, it is to where right now, I think it could probably do 95%, 95% of everything that I do as a lawyer. I think it can replicate like the top 1%, but I almost think the lag associated with it is more about the stack, the technology stack that we add to it, and how that hasn't caught up to the underlying sophistication of the model itself. And especially if we're able to narrow things in and ask it things, save for maybe doing math. And I know it has a hallucination related issue. We don't do too many um, we don't do citations right now. We avoid it because of that particular issue, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's really good.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with you that like the bounds of where things can go right now have not been met. And
Yeah.
also just, looking back on my career, one of my first litigation uh, jobs was working for a toxic tort personal injury lawyer in Southern California. All right. And so our bread and butter was going after large defendants that, typically manufactured, distributed, or sold chemicals of some kind. And people were exposed to them. They came down with some kind of disease. So we would be suing, my boss would be suing a dozen or more large manufacturers. And then, like as a green lawyer, was going in there having to depose, multiple different defendants, and then them going after me like 12 on one. Um, my point being though is like the discovery that was done. He had 4 paralegals. The 4 paralegals were working night and day because we would get buried with discovery responses from all those defendants. And those defendants were coming from white shoe law firms. And that was their, MO, is you just bury us in paper. And so those paralegals were working night and day. And there were multiple documents where they would be copying and pasting over general objections, specific objections, and that's how they templated it. And then going through all the grueling details and facts of each individual case to like answer it appropriately. And then of course you go over it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that the scope of how you're disclosing and answering it is just giving enough but not too much, right?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
the idea that you could do 90% of that with your tool,
Mhm.
and maybe like take a step back to like it being that polish that goes on it is amazing. Like it's really a huge achievement that you've accomplished with what you put together.
I, I mean, I appreciate that. I think it is a great equalizer. I mean, then we get into access to justice and cost of services, and the ability for a firm to do more work with less effort and and ultimately make more money. I know lawyers are real concerned that AI is going to come take jobs, but there's just so much business out there. There's so many things that we could be doing as lawyers. But a lot of times we can't. It doesn't make financial sense for us to take it on because the numbers don't work. Whether you're very large and you want massive damages, or you're smaller consumer lawyer who's taken on cases, and to have AI to be able to do that means doing a lot more, and also more people get access to justice. Um, it's fascinating to me, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. You mentioned white shoe law firms. What are they going to do? I mean, I know they're when I see stuff really, AI crapped on online, and I look at law firm, I'm like, okay, I can appreciate that this is not in your interest to have massive amounts of efficiency injected all of a sudden into your business model, which is based on maxing out billable hours. There's certainly clients, I think, will be the ones to push it first, naturally, like insurance defense companies and whatnot that have a lot of these things and don't need to be spending all this money. But there'll be a shift at some point within the big firms because they're going to have to come to terms with this stuff. It's just so efficient. Forget the novelty of it. I mean, even if AI.Law crashes and burns tomorrow, I am never drafting another objection to a discovery response ever in my life, ever again. Forget it. It's just so great. And I think one of your other folks on your show made a comment like nobody has gone in and tried AI and walked away and be like, oh, this is terrible. I'm never going to use this again. Like it's just great. You figure out how to use it, and there's challenges with that and the learning curve, but um, it is totally an industry changer, fundamental industry changer. You can't get around it. It's just so easy. It's great. Who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to use it?
Well, I think lately there's been a bit of a myopic focus on hallucinations, and that begs the question of it being like a very deep legal research use case, and that if it's not perfect, then you bet the farm and the farm's going to burn down. Like that is but one like very, very narrow, extremely narrow application of it. And I think a lot of people are missing the forest for the trees, because what you're talking about and some of the things we're doing with LawDroid is more workflow oriented, right? And so when you deal with that and you deal with administrative stuff and all of that together, that's a lot. That's a lot of value. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
and you can also read it before you file it and validate your citations before you go to court and say, here's what they are. Um, I think that that's a red herring. And obviously it's an issue because we talk about it and it has happened multiple times. And I know judges complain about it that have experienced it, but um, I recommend people read our pleadings before you file them. If look, a 5-year associate comes to me with a lawsuit, I'm going to read it before I file it. I'm going to have some sense. Okay, this case seems wrong, or I've been doing this for a little bit of time. The citation of the statute doesn't seem to make sense. Let me go look at it. I'll tell you, my firm. I think we filed the first completely AI drafted lawsuit in federal court a couple months ago. And I'm pretty sure it's one of the first, if not the first. And to give you some context, it was a consumer related issue, 3 counts, one federal law, one state statutory, one breach of contract, and I'm smiling because I know the plaintiff. They're sort of related to me, but um, we took all the back ends and the letters back and forth, and there was pre-litigation letter writing, and we gave AI a narrative. We put all that stuff into one document. It took us about 25 minutes to put all that together, organize it. One thing, uploaded that to AI.Law. I picked the claims, the counts, and it took about 4 minutes, 4 minutes to draft the whole thing. Then I spent about 10 minutes reviewing it, as I said, before you file. I'd say it was probably about 96, 97% there. There's some minor changes that I needed to make on it. And we filed it. So within an hour, it was start to finish. Yeah.
so let me ask you about that. And I know the numbers might be somewhat biased because you're telling it, but at the same time, like from your prior experience, like pre-AI, vis-a-vis 1 hour, like how long would that typically take?
Yeah, so we're talking 3 counts. The document was 9 pages long, with all the allegations and everything. It would have taken me probably 6 hours to do that. And there are things that I deal with at that quality. If I had an associate do it, it probably would have been 15 to 20 hours. And I don't know if they would have got to the quality. When I say quality, I mean you're specifically alleging facts that align with a very specific element of whatever the claim is. Like FDCPA was one of the claims, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and there are multiple elements. There's multiple like layers to alleging it, even though ultimately it's the debt collector did something they were supposed to do. And to have it pled in the way that it was, in the layering of facts that it was layered, makes it a really good complaint, in my opinion, that would have taken a lot of time. And they still would have had to do all the compilation of the material ahead of time too. So yeah, 45 minutes all in versus 8 to 20 hours. It's a complaint. I mean,
Let me ask you this to get into the weeds a little bit on
yeah,
that.
please.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but the like the awareness of all of the elements and things like that. Are you basically like sharing like jury instructions with the AI so that it understands like how it breaks down? Like in California, we use Cassie, which is California, you know, I even forgot what it meant, but California jury instructions that it breaks down each element and what you need to prove and give some guidance to a jury and like on how to prove that. That would be something that would make sense to me to feed to it to let it know that. Like, how would you, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, that goes back to my my earlier statement that AI is very, very, very good right now. And we prompt it, we template, I use examples. We have a layer of information that we give it ahead of time when it goes out and searches, but it's pulling the elements itself. It's going we specify the jurisdiction, we specify what we're looking for, and it goes and gets it. And that's why I say it's in the 90% because there might be some kind of some unique quirk or unusual way that a element is applied in a particular jurisdiction that's different than others that that you might want to look at closer. But when we trained it, I trained it on RICO and the Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organizations Act. It's complex. There's a lot of different, not only elements to the claim, but then you have to look at different statutory sections. So that's how we trained it. And when it brought in what I was looking for from an element standpoint from that, I knew uh, we were on the right track. It was going to be okay. Basically, it was capable of doing it, and it was able to actually do what we were looking to do in order to get the elements in.
Those are amazing numbers. So going from like 6 hours with an experienced litigator drafting the complaint to 1 hour, and also from like if an associate was assigned it, less experience, probably 10 plus hours for them to do it. So just like order of magnitude advance and what that allows you to do, obviously, is you can take on more cases potentially,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then have more cash flow. And if we take the example of like a personal injury firm, you know that the income is like spikes and then goes out and spikes and goes out. Like if you can smooth that out to some extent by having the ability to take on more cases. So let me ask you, related to the type of attorney, like the market for this,
Yeah.
what lawyers are you going after? Is it like the AmLaw 100, white shoe firms? Are you going after PI lawyers on the lower end? Is it solos and smalls and mediums in between that might be doing transactional? Like, who do you have in
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah, it's whoever wants to buy it is welcome to buy it, I guess, is my first answer to that. But
Good answer.
yeah, um the there's something I was gonna say too that tied into that you just mentioned. The answer to your question is I'm seeing more traction with smaller firms and solos that are more open to technology and also are focused a little bit more on the efficiency side of things. I do have interest with large defense side companies, but we're that's a slow moving process, and there are practicalities on size and what they want and all that ties into it. I also tell you too, with as much as we're talking about complaints and that maybe a PI lawyer might be listening to us and say, well, how on earth would it take 8 to 10 hours to create something and a complaint? And my things aren't that long. It's negligence. It's a couple pages long with facts. And we could do that too. That's even a lot faster. But what's important is the process that our AI follows, that our system that we've set up for it, to ensure that it's spending the time to draft an introductory statement that's persuasive, that you can use throughout the whole litigation as something where a jury or fact finder can appreciate the background or the story of the people, the parties involved in a persuasive way. It's paying attention to what's jurisdictionally required for the court that you're in. If you're federal court, what sections are you dealing with? The party allegations, and then the factual allegation, general allegation section is a chronology. It's a story that develops that you go from beginning to end. like a human being to do that individually, you've got to sit down and read everything, understand it, and then pull the facts out where they're going. So that takes time. Even with the element, or even with the counts, unless you're really familiar with those counts, you know what the elements are of it, you got to go pull jury instructions or go look at different case law or go multiple levels deep in different cases as you're going down the rabbit hole to figure out what claims that people brought in the past that might be relevant, and then finding those elements and adding those in. So to have AI take care of all that is where we get the efficiency. I'll also add, we do have a function, a module where we'll issue spot for you. So if you want to experiment, see what kind of claims are available, state, federal, regulatory, private causes of action that might be available, put in a fact pattern. I do as simple sometimes as mailman was bitten by a dog, to multi pages with a lot of information, and it is remarkable. A lot of times almost always it comes with ideas that I hadn't thought about, and even in space that I'm familiar with from a litigation standpoint. So I don't know if that answered your question. I guess I went through a lot there, but
That's fantastic.
okay.
And I think like in that same way, it helps us to complete the field of all of the things that we should be thinking about, because we're human beings, we get tired, like we're distracted by something else. And I think it's helping doctors for the same thing, because when they do like a comprehensive diagnosis of different things, AI is now being used to catch things that a doctor might not recall for the same reasons. Um,
Please, doctor, use AI with my, are, why not? I mean, okay, I go to a good doctor and I have comfortability with a doctor, but why not have it also looked at the AI? I mean, that would make no sense not to do that, just I did actually a poll on LinkedIn a couple months ago with that very question. It's like, how comfortable do you feel with your doctor supplementing their evaluation with a run through AI? And I was still surprised, like 20% of the people said, no way, no how, I don't want AI anywhere near me. And I'm like, okay, well, good, I guess. But yeah, I'd much prefer it. I think the majority of people, the 80%, would enjoy that double check. And here with law, we're not even doing double checks, so actually doing it for you. So, but here,
yeah, anything that can help keep me healthy, I'd appreciate that. Yeah.
for sure.
So where are the companies at right now? Are you bootstrapped? Are you seeking funding? There seems to be like an ever flowing announcements of people getting funding. What's your take on that?
Um, where I'm bootstrapping right now, it's coming out of my pocket, and we've talked to a few different VCs about funding. Um, We're beginning to get a lot of traction with our growth rate at this point. Month over month, we're above, I think, what most VCs would want to see. But I haven't gone at it 100%. I've been so focused on getting the product done that we've been more focused on profitability and expanding our funnel from a marketing standpoint to get folks in and brought on, that we haven't focused on it. Realistically, we're in low six figures, and I'd rather be in seven figures for a raise. And just from a general standpoint, this isn't just, we're in this space. It's the next step up, I would say, is a bigger step, right? It's a seven-figure raise versus me continue to bootstrap on where I can. So there's like this no man's land that I think, where I feel like we're in a little bit, but I think we'll get past soon enough, with some time and more sales, I suppose.
Yeah,
That's the
my personal input, not that you're
Please, yeah.
asking for it, is just is there a need to raise, right? Like being an owner, being a lawyer, having the ability to bootstrap it. Whenever I've had a chance to talk to VCs, they essentially want this ridiculous multiple growth that is a sure thing, that they're gonna, like, what's the point of needing VC at that stage? I mean, you're just enriching them, it seems to me. And if we have the ability, based upon our experience and our resources, to bootstrap ourselves, I mean, Describe is another great example of a company that's bootstrapping and doing a wonderful job executing, against their plan. So, if it's necessary, I guess, or if the idea is to expand really fast because there's others in the field, that might be a good reason too. But it comes with a price. There's a loss of control. There's a loss of, or there's also like a, expediency to reach certain numbers at certain stages and all that. But anyways, it seems like it could get more complicated, and it sounds like you have a really great thing, especially if you're, low six figures and you're continuing to grow on that, you know, uh, trajectory. That's pretty good. Just
I
my two
appreciate
cents.
it. Yeah, it's like I said, I'm not running out for it, but it's just it's an interesting concept. I mean, why not speed it up with the right partner if it makes sense? But I agree with you. Then why give up the equity also? And I just hold on to it. It's interesting. I don't know.
Well,
I'm very zen about life, so maybe I'll just take zen, moving forward. And if the right partner comes around that meshes with our personalities and the team that we have, which is a great team, then maybe something will come of it. And if not, then I guess I'll just keep more of the money at the end myself, I suppose. I don't know. Or we will, I guess, because we have multiple folks involved with developing it with equity. So we'll see.
yeah, I think that's a good approach because Kismet does play a huge part. You know, it played a part in us getting to know each other. So you never know what's going to happen. Um, well, let me ask you about a challenge. I had,
Yeah. Yeah.
before we started, mentioned that I might ask you about that. Like, what's a big challenge that you've encountered on this journey, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, and you said you prepped me for this before, and I said personal or business AI, business in general. Like, what's how big of a challenge you want me to discuss? I guess, but
Well, I'm thinking something related to AI.Law. Like something that came up, didn't expect it before. It's kind of novel because you're going into this legal AI business, and yeah, is there something along those lines?
um, I think it's sort of interesting. One of the challenges that still comes up is that this might sound really weird, but um, it's sometimes a little bit difficult for me to wrap my head around the idea that more people aren't on board with AI, or that there's this, I forget that there's this educational component of what we're doing that for vast majority of folks out there. And I skip over that a lot. And I have to remember that it's, you can have a great product that saves people a whole lot of time, makes their life a whole lot easier, but if they can't connect the dots to it, or you can't, sell it or describe it or educate enough about it to make that happen, then it really doesn't go anywhere. So um, that's um, that's something that I have actively built into our sales process now, where we recognize and I accept that this is a multi-month process to get somebody on board, even at our law start our lowest level, which is $49 a month for draft a complaint, few answers, that kind of thing. That so we have developed our marketing process around that, that we're touching people multiple times on multiple different venues that they're looking at and things that they're engaged in online. Most of it's online marketing to get there. So I guess it's been an interesting challenge.
Yeah, good point. I mean, in a sense, we're lucky that, I mean, both the technology that we're building on top of has done a lot of great um, work to educate people. I mean, just ChatGPT itself, the fact that it opened itself up for people to use and set the world on fire in terms of like interest and enthusiasm for it. I agree, though, that within the legal sphere, we're in a bit of a downturn right now. It's like, heading towards the trough of disillusionment if we're not there already. Um, but I think what's gonna win the day is just the pure value that is available, and the more and more people discover and use that, it's just going to be unavoidable that it's going to become part
Yeah.
of the day to day.
I agree. I mean, I totally agree. And I remember I wasn't practicing at this point, but I remember when email came out and everybody was like, oh, you can't use email because it's going to destroy client, attorney-client privilege. And the hair's on fire. We got over that real quick. I also remember when I first came out, law was a second career for me. That's why I was asking about how big of a challenge you want me to discuss. But, when I first came out of practice, nobody was doing Google pay-per-click ads. I was spending $500 a month on pay-per-click, getting in, enough clients to build a practice. Now it costs me more than $500 to find one client. So it's Crossing the Chasm, that book that sort of discusses the people that are way ahead of the ball game, and then you have the folks that are right behind them, and then you finally get to everybody, and then the folks that are skeptics at the end. And I think that we're on that path. I think it's expedited because everybody's talking about it so much than other technologies. But it'll it'll really start to click, I think, once the real big firms get engaged with it more. And I know some of them are using that one company with the H at the beginning of their name, and I don't know what exactly happens there, but I think we're both on the same page with that. What's behind the curtain there, but it's good overall that you've got folks at larger firms that are taking a serious look at it, without getting the efficiencies that we could provide through the workflow, because that's not that's counterproductive from a financial standpoint for them. But I think once you get one of the big firms willing to go out there and start doing some flat fee stuff, or start really undercutting, and everybody realizes that you can really undercut the market with AI involved, and you get the company starting to go to this new player, then everybody will follow suit. So it's just a matter of time. It take a few years, but we're not going backwards. This is not a fad that's going to go away. No way.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, so on the journey, like the journey that you've been on so far as a legal tech entrepreneur, what is some advice that you would have for people that might be watching this and they're thinking of starting up a legal tech company for themselves? What would you tell them?
I'd say solve a problem, versus look for a problem to solve. I think that you also need a legal tech, both the legal side of things to be really good, as well as the tech side. So if you're a brilliant software person, find a brilliant lawyer that you can match up with. If you're a brilliant lawyer, then find a brilliant, tech. Or if you're not brilliant at all, just find some people around you that can really direct you towards the solving an actual problem that people are facing on a daily basis, and then go at it. Have at it. Stay engaged in it, tenacious, and believe in it. If you believe in it, then eventually somebody else is going to believe in it too, or you'll find some path forward for making it work. Just trial and error, but you got to stick with it. But I think marrying tech with legal gets you a really long ways. So
Uh,
how would you think of that advice? Does that help?
I think it's fantastic, especially the tenacity part, right? Because you put all the skill stuff aside, and it really comes down to just being tenacious and hanging on for long enough. Is
That's
there
hard.
any? Yeah, it is hard.
It is. It is.
I think that drawing that you see about the paths of success, and it's not like this, it's actually like this,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yeah.
it's like,
I have to say, you've done a masterful job at this, though, especially on the marketing side. And I think that you also represent the multifacets that you have to have in order to really do well within any kind of business, especially being an entrepreneur. Like, you're just not a lawyer. You're not just a firm owner, but you have a whole infrastructure of events that you've built behind you, from legal tech awards um, I hope I use the right name for that. I'm terrible with names. It's just my part of my brain, but the awards that you have, bring in the experts associated with it to judge everything, the conferences, the law schools that you're involved with that are using your product. Like, you've done a really good job of having a complex universe of things around you that ultimately go to serve the community, but also help grow your business. So that would be a good lesson for folks to learn also, as they're, especially younger people that are just going out, that you got to think beyond just, here's a great product. No, I'll wait for people to go buy it, kind of thing. There's a lot to it.
Well, I
So.
appreciate that, Troy. Maybe it's just a result of ADHD. I don't know.
I'll see your ADHD and raise you autism. So there you
There you
go.
go. Uh,
This is my special interest. Is the law, AI? It's like I mean, my brain exactly thinks like AI, and I am autistic, and having it my special interest and really dedicated to it is definitely helpful. But I can appreciate ADHD too, because you're, bing, 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 and you got a lot of great ideas. They're all coming to life though, and here you are. So good for you.
well, anything that brings people together is
Yeah.
worthwhile.
Amen.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't talk about?
No, I feel like that's everything. Yeah, I appreciate this opportunity. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you about this. I think it's a phenomenal thing happening in the legal world, and I'm glad more people are starting to pay attention to it, and I hope it continues to do well. And if you're interested in litigation, AI related products, anybody listening, I'm happy to point you to AI.Law and check it out, or contact me. I know you're gonna ask me to tell my contact information anyway, but
You,
yeah,
got
feel
ahead of me
free.
there.
I
But
know.
yeah, how can the audience keep in touch with you and learn more about AI.Law?
Yeah, AI.Law is the website. And my email is troy@ai.law. Feel free to shoot me an email, and if I can help anyway, I'm happy to do that. So
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Troy.
thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. Seriously.
And thanks to all of you for watching LawDroid Manifesto. See you next time.
Thank you so much for watching the latest episode of the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. To keep in the loop about upcoming episodes, please subscribe to LawDroid Manifesto and you'll get notified. Thanks for watching. See you next time.